Welcome to another episode of Unraveling Intellectual Property with Michael Stein. Today, we have Russell Pigg, one of our interns here in the spring term of the 2024 at Stein IP. Russell, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm an undergrad student in my last year of undergrad, going to be going to law school next year. At Michigan State is where I'm finishing up my studies and yet to figure out where I'm going to be going to law school, waiting on a few decisions, but I'm looking forward to it.
All right, well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Even before you came on board, my local high school, for a number of years, I was thinking they have a mascot, and it looks remarkably like the mascot of Notre Dame with a couple of minor tweaks, but you could almost swear it looks alike, and yet there doesn't seem to be any issues. And then you came here, and then you asked me a question. What was that question?
Yeah, so we started doing a little, talking into trademarks, and one of the first things I thought of was all the time you see youth level, high school level teams using logos of college and professional teams. And so my thought was these teams, these professional and college teams that are making billions of dollars, they must have their logos trademarked. So why are they not stopping these high schools from using them? Is it infringement? What is the deal with that? So that was my question.
And
And
so then,
yeah, and so then I started looking into it. So I asked you about it, and you brought up that example, and we started looking into things. The first one that came to my mind that made me think of the issue was, I told the audience I go to Michigan State, and any Michigan Staters out there, let me know in the comments. Go green! But there's a local high school where I grew up in New Jersey, a Catholic school that uses the exact same logo, same color, same mascot. They're the Spartans. Here, I'll pull up both logos on screen for the listeners here, and you can see exactly the same color, same logo, same mascot, and yet they still get away with using it. And I've got them confused once or twice before. Once I started going to Michigan State, you see someone with, it was at DePaul Catholic was the school. You see someone with a sweatshirt on, oh, Michigan State, but no, DePaul Catholic. So that's what made me think of the issue. And so you brought up another example of you showed me an article of Texas Tech sent a cease and desist letter to a school in Colorado. They were the Thornton Trojans. And so they use the same double T that Texas Tech uses. Here, I'll show you listeners here on the screen. And you can see they're not the same color. One, the Thornton uses blue, but Texas Tech uses red, but it's the same logo. And so a cease and desist letter was sent, and Thornton, instead of fighting it, just changed their logo. And I'll pull up the new logo here on screen for listeners. And so they had to change it. And unfortunately, the reality of it for high schools is they don't have the funds to fight in litigation. There's actually never been litigation between a professional or college team over a high school or lower level logo using their trademark.
okay, that begs the question,
Yeah.
how does it continue to exist? So you asked me that, and I said, oh, that's an excellent question. Russell, why don't you research that? And then
So for professional teams, the spokesman for the NFL, Brian McCarthy, actually came out a few years ago and he said the NFL is not going to pursue any lower high school or Pee Wee level teams from using their logos. They think it inspires the youth, and they're happy to let them use it. And I think that mostly comes from a motivation of not wanting to look like a bad guy bullying smaller entities, pretty much.
NFL goes after the local high school.
Yeah, exactly. How bad would that look? But now it wasn't a big thing for colleges even until last few decades, and now with the growing business of merchandise for these universities, I mean, it's $1 billion industry now. These with the growing business of sports, and now even high school merchandise with games starting to be televised nationally is growing too. So it gives more incentivization for these colleges to actually go after and protect their trademarks.
I mean, it just brings to mind, as you're probably aware if you follow college sports, the Pac-10 schools, USC, UCLA. I'm not even sure the other two, maybe UCal and I forget, but they're going to be playing, in the Big Ten, and here we are, us in Maryland are going to be looking at USC games and USC logos. Hopefully, there'll be some good rivalries, but I guess we'll see how that develops.
Yeah, so now even with, you know, it expanding across the nation, these schools are sending cease and desist letters to schools all over the country, not just in their area. So a few examples: Notre Dame sent a cease and desist letter to a Catholic school in New Mexico. The Longhorns sent a cease and desist letter to a school in California. I already told you about Texas Tech sending one to a school in Colorado. And these are just a few examples. Hundreds of cease and desist letters get sent out. And like I said, the high schools can't fight it. And so it's unfortunate because at times it can cost these schools tens of thousands of dollars to completely rebrand all their uniforms, all their logos, all their signs, all their everything needs to be switched over, and it can cost them a good chunk of change. And the reality of it is, based on previous court rulings, the high schools may actually have a case if they fought it, but they just can't afford to. And so,
What's their case?
yeah, so the colleges will either go after the high schools for trademark infringement or trademark dilution. And so I'll go into infringement first. For infringement, usually they'll go after likelihood of confusion is the basis that the colleges will go after the high schools for. And now, like I said, there's no litigation between a high school or college before, but the best example we can look at where it kind of seems like it could apply, when the Washington Wizards switched over from the Bullets to the Wizards in '97, the Harlem Wizards actually sued the Wizards for trademark infringement.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, and so it was a likelihood of confusion case, and the court ruled that since the teams go after different audiences and they're in different geographic regions, that there's no likelihood of confusion. So if you apply that to these high schools that are far away, that are not going after the same fans as these college teams, it doesn't seem like a court would rule that there's likelihood of confusion. Now,
Except going back to your example of Michigan State, you said you were confused.
yeah, I've been confused by it. It's got me a few times,
Oh,
but
oh, and that local high school, where was it?
it's in Wayne, New Jersey.
All
So
right, so it's not even right next door to Michigan
no,
State,
no, not
but they
close
are
at all.
both in the Big Ten areas because you're being not too far from Rutgers.
Exactly, exactly. But so that would be infringement. And now for dilution, a dilution argument, the trademark in question would have to be a famous mark, and dilution comes either by tarnishment, which would be unlikely unless the high school is involved in some scandal, or by making it less distinguishable, less unique, less individual. If there's so many marks that look like the famous trademark, it becomes less individual, less unique. And now, so a case for this is a Texas Longhorn case in which the Texas Longhorns sued a company called KST Electric.
Okay, so in
Um,
this case, it wasn't about a high school or another school, but a
no,
company.
but it goes to serve here. And now the court, they ruled that the Longhorns were not a famous mark. And what they actually said is that the Longhorn logo, it's no Buick, no Kodak is the exact companies they compared it to, which I thought was pretty funny. But
When you're talking about the Longhorn logo, are you just talking about the steer with the antlers, or are you talking about it
yes,
with
here,
the
I'll
Texas
pull
Longhorn?
it up on screen for viewers here.
Okay,
This is the logo that I'm referring to, the orange Longhorn steer with antlers, like
all
you
right.
referred to. And so they ruled that's not a famous logo, which I actually found surprising when I was reading about it. But so that might mean that these high schools, if they get a letter, a cease and desist letter from these colleges, and it's either for infringement or dilution, they might have a case to fight it. If the court were to rule that it's not a famous mark for the college, or like for the Harlem Wizards, that they're not the same fan base, not the same geographic region, so there's no likelihood of confusion. But as I stated, they just don't have the funds to go after it. So the reality is, if a college was to send a cease and desist letter, they would just have to change their mark, which is what has happened every time.
I assume that has happened. Or
Yeah.
what you said every time. I don't know how often. It doesn't sound like it's real often because it probably doesn't even look that great for the college, you know, especially if it's, I mean, kind of the irony is if it's a local college and they sue a local high school, that in a way is almost going to look worse than a college across the country.
Yeah, I mean that's where most of their fans are going to come from. That's a lot of where their student base is going to come from is local places. So it probably does look worse. You're right. Yeah.
So that, I mean, just from my thinking and stuff, I'm glad I put you on this project and you did an excellent job. And I find it to be insightful. It's not just, I guess it goes to show it's not just the legal issues. You also have to consider the perception, the reputation, the business issues, as opposed to who necessarily is legally right or wrong.
Yeah, it's never just about the legality of things. It's never cut and dry. There's always so much that goes into it, politics, and they have so much to consider when they're making these decisions. So it's very interesting. It was fun to dig into, and you know, it taught me a lot about why these high schools are able to use them. So it was a good time.
We'll be interested, or I'll be interested to see what happens in the future, especially as these conferences become, particularly in football, even in basketball, these conferences becoming more national and less local.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to add, or we pretty much
Yeah,
covered?
that's about all I've got, and it was a good time chatting with you about it.
Well, likewise, great chatting with you. And to my audience, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Unraveling Intellectual Property with Michael Stein. Please follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel, Stein IP LLC. That's it for now. Look forward to having you join us on our next episode.
Thank you, Michael.